On Wednesday 21st of August 2019, former TVW Channel 7 Chief Engineer John Quicke gave an AMMPT InFocus presentation about the Perth Entertainment Centre, explaining much of the drama involved in establishing this then iconic venue.
It was supposed to cost $5 million. In the end, the bill was more than $8 million. But by 1974, it opened its doors for the world's biggest names in show business.
To declare the Channel 7 Edgeley Entertainment Centre in Perth officially open.
The Entertainment Centre was a dream shared by show business entrepreneur Michael Edgeley and Channel 7's Brian Treasure.
Well, let me tell you, this is such a pleasure to be here at this wonderful entertainment centre. This is the greatest, really it is. It's the biggest theatre in the world with 8,200 seats, and the last 12 rows are in Indonesia.
From ABBA to Elton John, David Bowie, Kylie Minogue, it performed for 28 memorable years. In 1979, the world tuned in for the Miss Universe pageant.
Miss Venezuela is Miss Universe.
The centre was considered so futuristic it earned a place in the Guinness Book of Records as the largest purpose-built theatre on Earth. The Entertainment Centre closed its doors in 2002. The Entertainment Centre became home to a million memories for the people of WA, the place where we got to see our favourite stars, the biggest names in show business, right here in our hometown.
Channel 7 Edgeley Entertainment Centre. A vision. Many things begin as a misty vision with little substance or belief. This vision had its real beginning in West Australian newspapers and propelled by James McCartney when he tasked Jim Carruthers with preparing an application for Perth's commercial TV licence. The first stage came to reality in the winning of the licence.
June 1958, the actual start of the television age in Western Australia. Exhaustive inquiries, research, facts, information, reports, documentation. After months of work, an application for a television license was completed and signed. Then came the lull, the wait. Would the application be acceptable? October 1958, the staccato beat of a teleprinter punched out a message of success. Quote, I am pleased to inform you that pursuant to the provisions of the Broadcasting and Television Act 1942-1956, I am now prepared to grant to TVW Limited a license for a commercial television station in the Perth area.
The vision grew and crystallised over the next 15 years with significant engineering, programming, sales and production achievements. Live productions, concerts, spectaculars, circus, Disney shows and community involvement such as Birdman,
the pub. What's it called?
The pub.
I see. I understand it's made of galvanized iron.
Tin.
And you look after the hotel yourself?
Yes, since it became too much for my husband.
Oh, he had to give it up?
Well, he had no choice in the matter. He turned his toes up, if you know what I mean.
telethon, Christmas pageant, swap meets,
Remember, Swap Meet returns to colourful Wanneroo Showgrounds on Sunday the 5th of November. Proceeds go to Telethon.
Open days, and not forgetting the Channel 7 Museum collection. We now come to another vision, growing from involvement in travelling shows, unsuitable venues and temporary tent shows. Yes, tonight we come to a new vision, developed by Brian Treasure and backed by often expressed philosophy of Sir James Carruthers. We are builders. The concept and early progress. From the experience in mounting live spectaculars in unsuitable, small and temporary venues, sports stadiums and tents, up to and including the Disney on Parade show, the Channel 7 architects, Hobbs, Winning and Leighton, prepared ideas for construction of a permanent venue to seat a minimum of 7,000 and possibly up to 15,000 people in a multi-purpose building, suiting stage and arena productions. The basic plans developed show the finally adopted circular building, with one end being committed to a large proscenium arch stage and the centre to a lounge seating or to a thrust stage, to suit a variety of uses. Two variations were considered. The first was to seat about 7,000 in a single tier of seating, and the second to include a second level of seating, increasing the capacity to, say, 12,000. Cost estimates for these ideas showed that the larger capacity two-tier concept would be an overcommitment at this time. However, the possibility of adding a second tier of seating at a later date was considered in the final design. It was interesting to see that these early plans were later provided to the Sydney Entertainment Centre, who built a two-tiered version without the proscenium arch stage and a capacity of about 12,000. The initial proposal was for a no-frills theatre and arena with about 8,000 seats to be built in a section of the Claremont Showgrounds. At this time, in August 1972, the cost was expected to be about $1.5 million. This proposal failed to obtain government approval, who wanted it centrally situated. Finally, the government decided railway land would be available earlier than expected and could be used for the new venue. A revised proposal was made by the Academy Entertainment Consortium, including TVW and Edgeley and Woolen Brothers. A new costing was prepared with some upgrading of the facilities. Lease of the land and building contracts were negotiated, and approval from the government was obtained to allow for the project to proceed, with a budget of $5.6 million approved by the shareholders. In 1972, I was seconded to Academy Entertainment to work full-time on all aspects of the project, reporting directly to Brian Treasure. We were now ready to start the actual building of the entertainment centre. And one of the first things to establish was the break of the seating to provide acceptable sight lines to the proscenium arch stage and all the areas and levels of the cross stage. Secondly, to design and specify and establish a fit-out budget, approximately $1 million as I remember, including the stage equipment, the seating, the lighting equipment, sound and intercom equipment, control and commentary and viewing facilities, the curtains and drapes, the TV outside broadcast facilities, emergency power generation and computerised ticketing system. Now started the specific tasks. We had to check the stage and movable thrust stage layout to ensure suitability for various shows and sporting events.
Well, when we did Phantom, Cameron McIntosh, which is one of the biggest theatre companies in the world, rated our backstage area as the best in the world for space and facilities, because we've got a workshop there on that level, huge workshop where you can build anything.
Option included stage shows, concerts, circus, tennis, basketball and similar uses. Particular requirements included extremes such as stage floor designs, flexible to a ballet dancer and suitable for a circus elephant standing on one foot.
Now, live from the Perth Entertainment Centre, here they come, the 75 most beautiful young ladies in the universe.
We did a Miss Universe, one of the best watched programs in the world, done here in Western Australia.
And wanted to stay because the world of tomorrow is here today. So come on way down under, it's darkness. You'll meet the friendliest people in all of the universe. The world of wonder awaits you down under and way out west.
First runner-up is Miss Bermuda. Miss Venezuela is Miss Universe.
One problem, we had built a special stage to their requirements and they were pretty fussy. Everything went well. It was a wonderful program, and at the end, when we're doing the credits, a whole bunch of cameramen, most of them from the eastern states or overseas, I might say, including one very heavy American cameraman, all rushed up on the stage and it collapsed. And Miss Universes tumbled around everywhere and tumbled into the pit.
Working with the architect's drawings of the building, including circular dress circle and rear seating, precast steps together with the thrust stage sections which could be raised and lowered on one level or in steps as required, plus the legal requirements for seating, public access and emergency evacuation. Considerations included maximum number of seats accessed from any aisle, minimum width of any aisle, and allowing half-seat offsets between rows. The cinema seating obviously was unsuitable because of the price, and we couldn't find anything suitable at an affordable price. From options considered, I specified my own design, a moulded seat back, seat arm and support mounted on the vertical concrete profile and supporting a hinge seat, all upholstered in stitched vinyl, and we obtained very attractive quotes for the arena seating. History has shown that the contractor was unable to reproduce the quality of their samples, and even after being paid much more for these to be upgraded, they were unable to match the excellent samples they produced, resulting in many being discarded and others failing on a nightly basis. Many temporary seats were installed during the time, and it took some time for the complete seating to be installed. Locally designed and upholstered lounge seating, cinema style, were similarly specified and quoted, and seats were quoted for the VIP boxes in the VIP lounge and bar area. Gentleman here tonight, David Huff, has volunteered to say a few words about what did the Entertainment Centre mean to Perth.
I want to make a couple of observations about Channel 7 in its early days. One of the first live shows that Channel 7 did was to do a television production of Shakespeare's play As You Like It. And Dorothy Lyle was the director, and I had the privilege in probably 1969, I suppose, to perform in that production. But Dorothy had a son who went to school with me. He was a year behind me at school in South Perth, and he ended up being Professor of Scottish Literature at Edinburgh University. And I thought, that's not a bad achievement for a Sassenach. So when it came to the Entertainment Centre, as somebody in the 1970s who was particularly interested in theatre, the Entertainment Centre enabled people to see shows that, one, they wouldn't be able to see, both in size, in scale, and in variety. So that I can remember seeing Shirley Bassey, for example, and sitting almost in the back row of the Entertainment Centre because they were the only seats I could afford. But such was her personality that she sat on my lap, metaphorically. She had the ability to project herself. Within a couple of weeks, one saw the Moscow Olympic gymnasts. Recently, I wrote an obituary on Alan Alda, the Australian ballet dancer, and I can remember him playing the part of Tybalt in the Australian ballet's Romeo and Juliet. An extraordinary performance, I remember quite well. So seeing the Australian ballet, which to a degree had been microscoped into His Majesty's Theatre, they now had room to move on a stage like the Entertainment Centre. Now, Australian dancers had a reputation overseas for having blunt noses, and the reason for it was that they travelled, in terms of their jetés and their movement across the stage, that the wings of European theatres were so shallow that they ended up flattening their faces against the wall. Now, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but the principle is there, that there is an amplitude about Australian performances, and the Entertainment Centre gave that opportunity. Now, in 1970, I was appointed Head of Speech and Drama at a new teachers' college, Mount Lawley Teachers' College, in Bradford Street. And quite close by lived Brian Treasure and Jocelyn and family, and he was enormously helpful to me in the setting up of our Music and Drama Centre. And it must be about 18 years, I suppose, since Brian passed away.
To the day. To the day. 27.
I'm a historian.
How about that?
But Brian had the uncanny ability to be able to take an envelope and work things out. He had that kind of brain, he had that kind of organisational thinking, and the number of things I wanted to do without experience, he was very helpful in that regard. Then in 1979 I was seconded to set up the WA Academy of Performing Arts, and I was there until June 81, and one would never have envisaged what that institution has now become. But when I had finished that, I ended up in the Faculty of Business at Edith Cowan University, and a huge number of rock groups, musical groups, went through the Entertainment Centre, which provided a great variety for Perth people to see things they might not otherwise have seen. And I have never seen a rock concert, but I've always was at that stage interested in popular music. And I used to like to throw into my teaching the odd lyric from here, there or wherever. And on one occasion, I was talking about this particular group called Inks, and a particular lyric that they had, you see, and there's a gradual look of concern passing across the face of the congregation. And finally somebody said, "David, how do you spell it?" So on the board I wrote I-N-X, and I never got any further. The whole crowd called it INXS. And to this day, many of them think that I was pulling their leg. INXS was one of the rock groups, one of the many rock groups that came to Perth and performed at the Entertainment Centre. When I was writing the history of His Majesty's Theatre, I interviewed Jim Crothers several times and Sir Charles Court several times, and he was a great supporter of the attempt to do the history of the match. And he said to me that Channel 7 got itself into strife financially, and that they came to the government and wanted the government to take it over. And he said, "I didn't think it was too much that if we helped them, they should help us by managing the restored His Majesty's Theatre," which was restored in May 1980. When I talked to Jim Crothers about his version of the story, he just had one word for it: blackmail. But he also told me that Michael Edgley was very lucky not to have ended up in jail for some of the financial fiddling that went on. I was doing time as a theatre critic, and on one occasion I was asked to go and review a concert by Julio Iglesias. I'd never heard of him, I knew nothing about him, but I had to go and review for the West Australian. So those days it was a cassette. So I listened to the music, but I sort of had in front of me two women slightly younger than me, and I thought, well, they were obviously enthusiastic. I'll review their performance, which will give me an insight into the reaction there. And these two demure ladies sat there. By the end of the night, they weren't sort of swirling their knickers around, but by goodness, they were totally involved. So I thought, well, That's one way of looking at a show, is gauging how the audience perform. So I don't want to drag things. Out, but the Entertainment Centre provided opportunities both for local employment as well as for audiences in a wide variety of things that we now have 3 arenas to do, the arena theatre or the football stadium, but to see the kind of high quality shows that otherwise would not have come here. And certainly Michael Edgley, as an entrepreneur, benefited from that, as did the people of Perth. So when, in about 2002, I think it was, they were going to pull down the Entertainment Centre, I wrote to Kerry Stokes and said, look, I'm a theatre historian. I had the history of His Majesty's Theatre to my credit. Subsequently, I wrote the history of Bowen's Department Store. And I said, I thought it would be a good idea if we chronicled the demolition of the Entertainment Centre and wrote a history of the Entertainment Centre because of the importance of it as a venue to the cultural life of Western Australia. I got a very polite letter back saying, it sounds very interesting, we're happy to provide you with photos. Thank you very much.
The end of an era. It was once the place to be in Perth, purpose-built in 1974. Rock stars, basketball games and even a Miss Universe pageant have graced its stage.
Tens of thousands of Western Australians that have seen shows here over the years. My own experience goes from Joe Cocker to Disney on Ice.
But 12 years ago, it shut its doors for good, the centre laying dormant in the middle of the city until its final chapter today. The demolition making way for the state government's $650 million CityLink project, which involves the sinking of the rail line and bus port.
This is a sad day from an entertainment point of view, but it's also a great day to be moving forward.
This is a complete rebuilding of the heart of Perth. It's a project that has been talked about for over 100 years. It is finally going to happen.
The site will connect the CBD with the Northbridge Entertainment Precinct. It will include apartments, commercial high-rises and a vibrant town square.
This is the largest transit-oriented development in Australia, and it is really indicative of the substantial changes which are occurring in the growth of Perth.
The project is expected to attract around $3 billion of private investment into the state and create more than 13,000 jobs.